Hey everybody, it's John at aMTBer Products. I was looking around at what's out there and the descriptions that come up when you Google chain waxing and things like that. One of the things, and let's see here, one of the things that's not really discussed much outside of certain channels, like maybe Zero Friction Cycling talks about it occasionally, is the break-in time it takes with a freshly waxed crockpot chain. Right here, it's 20 minutes of riding to ensure the wax is properly broken in and surface polished. 30 to 45 minutes is the real butter zone where wax treatment is hitting the absolute lowest friction. This is prior to a race. This is like you need to do this right before you go race because the wax needs to be warmed up, and that's a real downside if you just want to get on your bike and race after maybe, doing your morning stretching routine and all these other things. And so it's not ideal. And the thing about my product is it's a race chain lube right out of the bottle. There's some more stuff about it. Temperature. The colder it is, the longer the break-in period. So these are other factors affecting break-in time. For example, it might take 30 minutes of riding above 20 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 minutes if it's below. That's strange. I'm not sure about these numbers here. Proper preparation. The chain was not thoroughly cleaned of its factory grease. The wax may not adhere well. Well, the wax won't adhere at all unless you do a conversion like our Smooth Lube original formula, chain prep formula. And the chain may not break in properly. So initial stiffness. This is something that I noticed right away when I was doing my crockpot chains. A freshly waxed chain will feel stiff when you first install it, and you might notice it when it's backpedaling. Yeah, it'll jump off the gears. It will not shift well, and it takes a long time to get it to be something you are happy with. And again, the reason I developed all these products was to get around all the dozens of problems. I've got a list of 7 things that I wanted to solve, but those are the top ones. There's many other factors here. This race day chain break-in period, 30 to 45 minutes of pedaling to get your chain warmed up for racing is one that doesn't affect an average person, but it's just they're coming out and telling you it's not ideal. But yeah, the backpedaling here, I noticed that right away. Just chains would I do a lot of backpedaling. Coming into a corner, I might backpedal into a downward a downward outside foot position for the corner, and it's just not good. And then if the chain jumps off the cog and you go to put power down, you can break a chain. How to break your chain in. Ride it after installing the chain on your bike. Go for a short ride. 20 to 30 minutes is usually sufficient in moderate conditions. Yeah, so, what I had with the original formulas, like Formula 1.2, before we had the chain prep solution, was to do a couple of short rides to establish the particles and all the goodies in the lube into the chain to get proper bonding to all the surfaces. It was a little different. You don't have to do that, but if you're going to go on a really long ride, you would want to have it fully coated, fully bonded. And the only way to know is to do several applications with my product to make sure you did a proper job of preparation here. So if you didn't do a great job preparation, the chain lube will prep itself over the first 2 or 3 rides. That's what my product was designed to do. The chain prep formula now gets around that. It's only $12. You can use it on your chain, do 2 coats, 2 5-minute applications of it, and you're good to go. Like the video will be linked below, we'll show you, and then after that you can use it around the house, because it's going to be a while before you need a new chain. I leave my chains on for 3 years, and at that point there's about 6,000 miles per bike, about 2,000 miles a year, and that's about as much as I'm willing to risk going out in the boonies. You know, I'll grab the bike, I might go on a crazy 50-mile ride one day, and I certainly don't want to break the chain out in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone reception. So after 3 years, I changed the chain just out of safety's sake. And I always carry links, but, you know, after 3 years of my weight pedaling uphill, super steep. I mean, there's some climbs right here that are 20%. There's one that's 25%. I don't do it anymore, but I used to. So I put my chain through other stresses. Listen for quietness. It's telling you to listen. So listen. So sit back and listen and wait till you hear the quietness. The chain will become noticeably quieter as it breaks in. Yeah, well, mine is super quiet right out of the gate, which means it's a racing chain right out of the gate. The breaking in is essential. The wax on the surface polishing and the wax inside the roller is fully settling. Okay. Articulate it. To speed up the process after the wax is cool completely, flex the chain back and forth around a round object. Yeah, too much work, guys. Like a PVC pipe or broom handle for a few minutes to break up any excess surface wax that is binding the link. So it's telling you right there is binding. Mine, there's no binding at all. I was messing around with the pendulum test yesterday on a brand new chain with the factory grease still in. About 7 or 8, it was about 6 or 7 links that came off of a new chain that had the factory. I put mine on, worked it in with the toothbrush for a second, actually with the little blue brush, and then was checking the pendulum effect of it, and it was unbelievably smooth and friction free, even just mixed in with the packing grease, which is how we used to do it. I wish I had some better cameras to do some of this stuff here for you to see. Maybe we'll get around to it a little later on. I've got that section of chain here. It's dried overnight now, and you can see just how smooth it is. So as I was Googling around, I stumbled upon the Zero Friction Cycling Wax Zen Master Guide, and it is a PDF file that's pretty extensive. There it is, I found it. So it talks about how to clean your chain, talks about a lot of things, but there was one thing that stood out. Well, it's the next day. Here's one. Step 10. When the wax is dry, set about 15 minutes. Most days it will be it'll be very stiff and solid. You can reinstall now, but usually I hang my chains to dry and then allow 2 minutes before next ride to reinstall. I'm not sure if that's a misstatement there. You get very quick at it in no time. And he goes into it. To reinstall, you need to break the wax bond on each link. Sounds like a lot of work. And here is a picture of a PVC pipe where he runs it across it, I guess. And then if you don't do that, it's just shedding all over your bike even more. But it does shed it sheds every time. Most of my bikes are black. It's really annoying. And then there's the quick link that you have to remove over and over and over each time you lube your chain. And for me here in Malibu Hills, on the crazy temperatures I used to ride, I'd have to do it every ride. I would have to wax my chain every ride. I'll show you some of that in a second here. I was looking around for some new images for the vlogs and the podcast here, and found some stuff here on some of my training rides from back. This is June 19th, 2016. 113 degrees. It would be 100 degrees while I was out there riding that day. And I think this is the next day, 116. So here I am training with my wax dip chains, with my smooth lube top off stuff, seeing at this point I was just now, 2016, I was just now doing the top off stuff. And, I was making note of these temperatures These were probably screenshots that were on my Strava rides for those dates, maybe. It's interesting why I've got this pointed out like this. So I found these screenshots, even though I can't access my Strava data anymore. But this is what I was putting my chains through with an optimized crockpot dip chain back then, 2016. I was still dipping my chains. I was just now using the top off formula for about 6 or 8 months. I think I came up with it late 2015. And I'd been crockpotting chains prior to that. So the thing is that these hot temperatures with my weight and the climbing I was doing does not translate into hundreds of kilometers. Or I'm in California, so we talk about miles here. I wasn't able to get 100 miles on a chain. My training rides were usually under 100 miles. Here's a screenshot of one from, it looks like it's from May, the month prior. So this would be a very hot day, and you see there I was getting a lot of PRs back then. The average speed is low because I would stop and not shut off the Garmin. I wasn't concerned about my average speed because I would take breaks here and there and not stop the Garmin. But this would be an 80-mile ride with 7,300 feet of elevation gain. These were the things I was doing as training at the time, and this is when I needed to get around this crockpot problem. So this would have been May of 2016, really trying to get away from this crockpot ritual to do these training rides, and this was probably a very hot day. 5,000 calories burned, 80 miles, 7,300 feet of gain. It's a 6-hour ride, but a lot of that was, enjoying the view. I don't see, I've even got pictures there of me kicking back and just, taking breaks. So it wasn't 6 straight hours of riding, but it would have been pretty darn close. So when Googling around, one of the things that first came up was this benefits of using wax. 100% clean chain. Well, that depends. That depends on your wax blend. If you got a lot of soft wax in your crockpot and you go on these 100-degree rides, you're going to take on a lot of dust. The wax will reliquefy in the hot weather, where my 5311 does not reliquefy in the heat. It says 5 watts faster, but 3 times the chain lifespan. I'm getting upwards of 5. I would say it's 10 times from my original, what I was usually getting with dry lubes. I was only getting about 700, 800 miles out of a chain before it'd be past 50%, going into 60%, and I wasn't getting that many miles. Right now, when I hit these numbers on my mountain bikes, the chain is at usually around 18%. So it's still, if you're going to go the full 25, where you are guaranteed no cassette wear, that kind of thing, you still got another couple years to go on my chain lube. So when I tried to type in best chain lube, I spelled it wrong, but this is what came up. Rock and Roll was praised a one-stop shop chain maintenance, working well in both wet and dry conditions, acting as both a solvent and a lubricant. So, I've used this. I've used several bottles of it when it was recommended to me back in the early 2010, like 2010, 11, 12, around there. I've tried it. The Rock and Roll Gold. I've tried the blue. And, anyway, the problem is that it collected a lot of dust, and it didn't last that long. It went on very thin. So I, only used the 1 or 2 bottles that I tried, and I moved on from there. At that point, I probably went back to making a synthetic lube for myself. So it says here, some users note that it does not have the long-lasting durability of dedicated wax or ceramic lubes, but it's still a solid choice for many cyclists. Yeah, it depends on how avid you are with cyclists, how many miles you do. And now it's funny here. This is why I screenshotted this. It says, this video demonstrates how to apply rock and roll gold lube to a chain, and it's got the Loam Wolf video of my product there, where it says favorite lube. So this is AI saying that this video is about rock and roll gold when it's absolutely not. That's my bottle right there. Looks like a 5311 bottle there. And that's the Loam Wolf video. Favorite lube, yes. So this is back to talking about rock and roll gold. Dual action formula lube solvency, meaning it can clean the chain as you apply it. So that's very similar to how my synthetic used to work. Like I said, I used to do it like a little Zerk fitting on each link and just push the new lube through to get and so that I had been doing for a long time. But the thing about my lube, this stuff actually in the picture here, this video demonstrates how to apply rock and roll gold to a chain, which is funny. I don't know how that mistake could actually be made, but I think that's pretty telling of what AI really is about. AI gets most of its information from Reddit, by the way, just so you know. The key features and benefits. So the difference between mine is that nothing sticks to it, so there's nothing to clean. It's literally it's that simple. If you want to feel better, you can run water on it, but I don't do that at all. I just put more lube on and sort of do the same thing. And then all the contaminants get encapsulated in the wax and will shed away, which is going to be next to nothing because nothing sticks to it. Nothing sticks to it at all. Go to the Granny Gear review. He says he's got a playlist of chain lubes, most featuring my product on his channel, and he noticed that right away. Absolutely nothing sticks to it. In fact, when we're filling the bottles, there's a little heat seal that goes on the top of the bottle, the little foil thing you peel off. If there's one little speck of the lube on the lip of that bottle, that heat seal won't seal. Okay, so we have to wipe down every bottle with a little sponge of alcohol to make sure that the heat seal will even bond to the bottle. It's that crucial. So even just a little spatter will prevent that seal from sealing. Nothing sticks to it all, not even glue. So it says easy to use. You can apply it and wipe the chain completely dry, which is effective for keeping it clean and preventing dust buildup. Ours does not get any dust buildup at all. And in fact, you can take a little bit on the brush that comes with it and run it across your cassette, and your cassette will get no dust on it either. Helping further extend your chain life by having all the surfaces the chain touches, all the teeth, everything, nothing sticks to it. So I recommend doing that as well. Meaning leave a small film on your chain ring and your jockey wheels, and you'll never wear those out either. Durability, potential drawbacks. It may not last as long as more specialized or heavy-duty lubes, particularly those based on wax or ceramics. Application detail. Some users find it requires a bit more frequent application, especially in harsh conditions. So this is talking about the rock and roll gold, which is a huge favorite among mountain bikers. And if you look at the bottle, it's only got about a 1/4 inch of wax, 1/2 inch of wax in the bottom of the bottle that you have to shake it up to get that all in there. The rest is all solvent. So, I mean, it's really kind of like WD-40 with some wax in it. That's really what it is. And that's why it doesn't last that long, because there's not that much actual lubrication in there. It's more of a cleaner. And like I said, I've used it and it worked good on short rides, but then I'd have to clean the chain religiously, and that ritual became too time consuming. I eventually abandoned all these lubes to go to a crock pot, and that became time consuming in a whole different way. So the AI had more to say here. Other considerations: cleanliness versus durability. Okay, so this is what they have to say based on everything else that's out there. There is a trade-off between lubes that attract dirt, wet lubes, and those that fling off more easily, dry lubes. Okay, there is no trade-off with mine. You're getting excellent wet weather performance, no dust adhesion. You're getting the best of both worlds, and not having all the problems of either one. You're not having the traction of dirt with the oil, and you're not having the short lifespan of the dry lubes. Okay. Here it goes. Applications. Some lubes require specific application techniques. So mine has a specific application technique. That part of designing this lube from the ground up, I threw out everything I knew and said, how do we build a chain lube that's going to work on a mountain bike in an exposed environment? And it requires a slightly different application technique, such as applying wet and wiping completely dry, while others are easier to use out of the can. I think ours is the easiest to use out of the can. I really do. And then it talks about environmental impact. Well, you don't have to ever use stripper on mine, so that's a really good plus for you and the environment. You don't ever have to clean your chain. You never have to take it off your bike. You never have to split that quick link. You never have to degrease it. It becomes seasoned like a cast iron pan. Granny Gear came up with that analogy, and I think it's perfect description. I always was telling people you have to get it established in the chain, let the particles bond. It was too technical for them. Seasoning a cast iron pan, everybody understands that, and that's what's going on with my product. Nothing sticks to it. There's no dust to clean on it at the end of the ride. The only situation where you'd have to even use a hose on a chain with my product is if you were literally inundated with mud, where the rear tire is packed, the rear chain stays solid, it's gotten through the chain, it's been grinded into your chain ring, the mud is grinded in through with your chain rings in through the rollers. At that point, you gotta wash your bike, But I certainly don't take my $10,000 bikes out in those conditions anymore. It's not fun. Some people, it's the only choice. Wet, loamy trails where you get spatter, that's a whole different story. I'm talking about clay, mud, caked on your bike. There's really nothing that survives that. So mine does extremely well when you wash it off and just go for a ride to get it all out of the rollers. It does extremely well. I've done it on accident. I've done it on purpose. I purposely went out on rain days to trails that are pretty filthy, and my stuff holds up better than anything else I've used. Anything else, even my own synthetic, held up better than that. So it held up better than my own synthetic, I meant to say. One of the things I've heard about this molten speed wax stuff, what I found interesting is that Wolf Tooth is actually selling it on their site. Now I saw it at $35 for this can of wax. You still got to use a crock pot. And then there's the Silco's waxing system, $96. Okay, not $114, only $96. And the thing is that mountain bikers are starting to catch on to this. This is Wolf Tooth. They're a very great company, make great products. I use a ton of their stuff, and they're on board with the wax thing. But it still requires you to get a melter or use a $10 crock pot and have a dedicated area in your house or garage somewhere just to do your chains. Back to AI's recommendation, they recommend Rock and Roll Gold and then Muck Off. And, we covered Rock and Roll. I mean, you can see there the bottle is very clear liquid. And then down at the bottom, you can see it's got the wax on the bottom there, but it's very clear on the top. That's all solvent. That's just, most people have tried the dry lube with Muck Off. I mean, for your average person, they have a wet lube, but it attracts dirt. This is what AI says is the best stuff. When you Google best chain lube mountain bike, up the top there, best chain lube mountain bike, AI says Rock and Roll Gold and Muck Off. And I think everybody that's used these would agree it doesn't solve all the problems. Neither of these do. Okay. And this is the list. And then you've got the Squirt, which is 75% water and emulsifiers and only 25% lube. And then you got a Bose Shield. This somehow came up for rust protection. Yeah, well, using an aerosol on a mountain bike with disc brakes is not a good idea. But I do have a disc brake rotor restorer if that happens. It's still coming. I'm still working on stickers. I can't believe how much everything costs, and artwork these days is not easy for me to do. So AI says the lube type to consider. They actually give it its own designation now. So the three main types are wet, dry, and wax-based. So dry lubes are something else. I've heard a lot of them are silicone-based. I've heard a lot of them have other kind of chemistry going on. but they don't hold up. Paraffin has been well known as the best lubricant in the world for hundreds of years, and I don't know why it's in motor oil and not in bicycle chain lubes until the last maybe 10 years. So, you know, my top-off formula was the first attempt to get the paraffin at room temperature in a liquid form. And from there, we perfected this in the last, well, it's been perfected for several years now, probably close to 5 years. January 2021 is when I perfected 5311. It's not gotten any better since that. It holds up in all temperatures, all conditions, just fine. And if you need to go on mud rides, get the Darkmatter as a supplement. You'll be very happy. I had to take a little break there to put a dent in the shipping for today. Well, anyway, I did mention this about the quick links. You know, if you're a mountain biker, this is something you don't want to do. This is very, very dangerous. These links get loose. I don't care which one it is. You do it enough times, you can take it apart with your fingers. Now, if you go through a rock garden or even just a rough, bumpy trail, you can lose your chain. And when you go to take that pedal and your chain's not there, you can fly over the bars. So it's happened to me. I actually came out of I was at the jump park in Fillmore, went right down the street from the warehouse, and I was jumping the big line. There's small jumps there. It's really not a great place, but I would take my lunch break there and do a jump for a half hour or so. I came around that berm and took a pedal, and I flew over the bars on my dirt jumper because the quick link came apart, and I hit my chest into the stem. So I was injured for a while because of a quick link. So I don't care what this guy says. I don't care. Okay? You either trust him or you trust your instincts. Okay? A quick link that you can eventually take apart with your fingers is not safe. And if you want to buy new quick links every ride, that's offsetting the whole reason for doing waxing in the first place. You're going to spend $1,000 on quick links instead of bike parts. Got a picture here of the Wright brothers with a chain ring and a bicycle chain in the background on the very first airplane. While I talk about the 100-mile thing. Now, when I was doing crockpot dips changed with my own formula, I had all the same stuff that's in everybody else's wax dip chains. I had the black stuff, the white stuff. I had the different things in there. I'm not going to divulge them all. But, you know, if you want to learn, go to OzCycle, and he'll tell you every single ingredient that can possibly go into a chain lube. Almost. But I know what they're using. I know what I was using. And I know when it was 100 degrees, like right here, 116 degrees was the high that day. I was actually 112 out there riding. When I say that I couldn't do 100 miles on a wax dip chain, what I'm talking about is I probably, if I had the energy, I could probably hit 100 miles that day, or maybe even 120 if I had the energy, and the chain would have held up fine. It's the next day. I know that it doesn't feel good through my feet to ride yesterday's wax dip chain with 80 miles on it and 7,000 feet of climbing, okay? Burned 5,000 calories. I know that the next day I'm going to be 10 miles in and I'm going to have like this unlubed chain anxiety going on, just knowing I'm wearing out my parts for no reason. So the Top Op formula solved that, and I wound up using the Top Op formula as my chain lube for dozens and dozens of rides following that initial waxing, which saved me hours of time. You know, didn't have to break the quick link. I was going 10, 20 rides, and eventually it just became my chain lube on my wax dip chain, which started out a wax dip chain, but after 20 rides, there's hardly nothing of that left. And it got me through. My average training ride was 35 to 65 miles. That was about the average. 80 miles in the Malibu is a big day for me. I see what the pros do when they're out here. They're doing 100 miles. You know, Phil Guyman, he does 100 miles when he goes out there. I'm not Phil Guyman, you know, and neither are you. So this was getting me through my daily training rides, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And from there, I developed it further. These are the first three. This is where it started. went to the mountain bike line to the left, the road bike, gravel bike ride to the right with the Formula 1.2, and then that turned into 5311. So basically, in the last vlog, last podcast, I talked about how Guitar Ted took the first iterations of 1.2 and did a review about it, and he even misspelled the name. Oh, after I confronted him about it, he never even took the review down, for one thing, because he wasn't given it to do a review. He was given it to give me his feedback so I could further adjust the formula to meet all the conditions. And what eventually happened, just to add a little more detail. Let me turn my phone on. Do not disturb. What happened after modifying 1.2, after, me and Granny Gear testing this all summer and through 2019, was I realized that what would become 5311 was a completely different chain lube. And I liked the Formula 1.2 for I liked it for my downhill bike. I liked it for it's more of my enduro bike that I would ride the local trails here, like Woolsey and Rocky Peak and stuff. I liked it for some of that stuff, where it was a lot of climbing, where this was more of my downhill bike formula for like the bike parks. The dust passes through the chain. This is a very thin build. The dust passes through the chain. This has got a slightly higher build and more particles for endurance. But what was happening was, by the time I developed it to the 5311 point that it is now, even the first iterations, it was a completely different lube. This was an extremely high build in comparison. It stays really clean. It really does, but not as clean as 1.2. So there was a slight trade-off, but honestly, this is so much cleaner than probably anything you've ever used, including a wax dip chain, that this is our pinnacle product for pretty much all applications. Now, this is an original label that says Road Bike Race Formula, where I just ran outside to take a picture. I can't find the artwork for this. But now what it says is mountain bike and road bike race formula, super clean chain lube. So I changed the label slightly to let you know it is a mountain bike racing chain lube, like say for XC bikes, gravel bikes, that kind of stuff. So it's a high performance chain lube. It's very fast right out of the bottle. No break-in time like we talked about in the beginning. In fact, this stuff is really fast within the first hour. And at that point, the wax is warmed up and you've got your racing chain on stage 2. Now, I just touched on the wet phase of the wax. I don't want to divulge those sort of trade secrets yet. I mentioned it in a previous podcast that we would talk about it, but I'm unwilling to discuss it yet because I haven't found the way to talk about it the way I'd like to. So I want to tell you guys about it. Don't want to tell them about it in the way. So the thing about my product is it is very fast when freshly applied, because it was originally designed for my TT bikes. I was going to race the TT bike circuit out here. There's quite a few races in Southern California, San Diego, one out here, right out in Fillmore. It's the, what do they call it? The Piru TT bike race. So that goes down Guyberson Road. That's where a lot of that's 8 or 10 miles of no stop signs. That's where I did a lot of the TT bike training for constant power applied to the chain lube to see how long it would take to make noise, and it just didn't. It outperformed what I could do. So I think we covered quite a bit here. I can't believe it's been 4 days since I've done a podcast, and I really appreciate all the comments I get, the emails I get, and the questions I get about the products. I really do appreciate it. I want to thank you all for trying my product, and the ones that are already repeat customers. It's amazing. You guys have let me know you see the difference. And so to answer the most often asked question is, which one do I start with? Well, this one here is now mountain bike and road bike race formula. This is a good place to start if you're a pretty avid cyclist. And if you want to save $3 or $4, you can get the Formula 1.2. But this does hold up in wet conditions extremely well. It holds up in very muddy conditions pretty well. You know, if you get your chain so inundated you have to hose it off, it'll still hold up to finish your ride. And they all are waterproof. So the higher the build, the more it repels the mud from getting inside. So that's something about the 5311, and then you'd have the Darkmatter and the Uber Clear that are even higher builds than this, and those are my e-bike formulas. So you know, a lot of people, this is all you'll ever need, and a lot of other people who are, maybe you consider yourself a casual cyclist, the Formula 1.2 is probably all you will ever need. At $14.99 a bottle, it's pretty much as good as a wax dip chain, if not better, because you have no maintenance. You have no maintenance. I don't think I have no maintenance on this list here. This list was done summer of 2019 when we took these photos. So thanks so much. Hopefully we'll get the attention of GMBN someday, and maybe they'll want to have me sponsor their channel. No, I'm sorry, I don't have $25,000 a month to be the official sponsor of GMBN. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like, make a subscription to this channel. That helps out the algorithms. And if you leave a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And you can take me off your liked videos list later on, but as long as you like it for a day, that's all the computer needs to know. That's what I need to get this to, so more than just 10 people see it. All right, guys. Hopefully Dottie will try my chain lube again someday. All right, guys. Have a great day. Get out and ride. It's Taco Tuesday, right? Is it Taco Tuesday? It sure is. That's what I'm doing a little later. All right, guys. Talk soon.